Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fog Pod. My name is Giuliana, and I am the current Foghorn correspondent with the USF TV. And today we're going to be sitting down with some of the organizers from It's On USF CA. So to start off, we're just going to go around and have the three of you introduce yourselves.
I can go first. My name is Gabby. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior in the politics department, and I'm minoring in philosophy and law. I've been involved with It's On and mutual aid and last year's Day of Action protest since I think summer of 2020 or before. Hard to keep track.
My name is Mateo. I use they, them pronouns. I am a current environmental studies major and a Latin American studies minor. I approach the space as a survivor, and as somebody who is truly, genuinely frustrated with the culture of assault that takes place on our campus, and the way it's been handled by administration. Like Gabby, I've also been involved with USF Mutual Aid and have just recently got involved with It's On for our Day of Action.
Hi, my name is Alana. I use she, they pronouns, and I am a senior politics major with a legal studies minor. I also come to this space as a survivor, and I actually haven't really been involved with that much since that incident happened my freshman year, and this has been the first time that something on campus has really motivated me to become the activist I always have been again. So that's why I'm here.
For those who are listening and may not know, would you mind just giving a brief overview of what It's On USF CA is and about what you're all currently advocating for?
Yeah, so It's On USF CA has been operating since the summer of 2020 and maybe before. It came out of a lot of allegations and originally a meme posted by an alumni regarding, the culture of sexual assault on campus, and the memes and posts online really resonated with students. And since then, the organization's kicked off to keep track of survivor stories, help them with the process, and just to act as a voice for students. I think that the university really lacked that before, so It's On's main goal has really been educating students on their Title IX rights, but also helping them with the whole process and having a place that they can turn to for that kind of support. Right now, we're advocating for a couple different changes. We're sort of moving in a new direction, and that is really trying to be active on campus with the national movement that's happening around sexual assault so that we can push our demands forward. Now that we have this ability to force the school to see us while we're on campus again. The demands we posed last week were that Father Fitzgerald has to apologize for the university failures and asking him to meet with survivors. We also asked for survivor-centered Title IX policies, which I think the university has slightly misunderstood to mean that we want them to push for change on the state level. And what we're really asking them to do is change their own policies, not advocate for change, but actually sit down in their own offices and make that change. The third request that we made was for the creation of a student and survivor sexual violence task force, one that's not involved with staff, but really a place that students can turn to on their own. And finally, we also asked that the school really change and engage with courses and training for community members, making sure that staff, faculty, coaches, students, everyone has a quarterly training. This doesn't mean when you come in freshman year, it means ongoing, that you need to continue to educate yourself on the way you engage with others in sexual spaces and on abuses and spaces where consent might not be appropriately managed, and make sure that you are advocating for yourself and also not causing harm to others. And finally, we want them to increase funding for sexual violence prevention and awareness programs year-round. We spend a lot of money on a lot of different things at this school, one of them being athletics. It's a misconception that athletics brings us money. Most of the time, athletics is self-funding. So if we're going to be engaging in the need for more financing and trying to make new students want to come to USF, we should really be putting that funding towards student safety so that new students that come get the benefits of a USF education and the cost of a USF education rewarded back to them.
So the week before last, It's on USFCA hosted a Survivor Speak Out event and a vigil on campus in response to the Sports Illustrated article. What has the progress been since these events?
With our physical demonstration, you can see that some of the stakes are still on campus, though the list of demands and the explanation of what that demonstration meant no longer holds. However, it's been a little bit of a slow process because, with the momentum and energy of people right in front of us, we can do a lot and we can speak a lot. But as we're waiting for emails to be responded to and, to get different spaces reserved, it's going to take us a minute. But I don't know if you want to continue with that.
Yeah, so Alana and I are actually currently trying to work on a continuation of the space that we set at the Survivor Speak Out, and create kind of like a support network for students to link up and continue to share their stories in a safe space, in an abolitionist space, one that's free of hierarchy and judgment. And we're currently still drafting that, but it is something we plan to roll out with very soon.
And also that specific event, I think is important to note that it's not centered around demonstrations and a push for change. That event is solely centered around survivor safety and support. Right. We're going to be planning a separate town hall, which we want people to come to, especially people who want to get involved in the movement, where that's more we'll be discussing more policy changes and other things we want to see on campus.
Another thing that we spoke about, ourselves is that during movements like this, we're not trying to become, the face of something. Our names and our identities are not that important to the long-held It's On movement. It's more about continuing that space. So we encourage students to come to us with ideas for events, to connect with us, to hold their own events, and to really, become part of that space. If you want to join us in advocacy, you can DM us, you can form your own smaller group. But we aren't the gatekeeper of what the movement should be about and what student sexual survivors need to do in order to protest. We're really glad that we've opened the space again for students, but I think it's important that, even with the university communicating with us, that they see that we are advocates for students, but we aren't the only students being impacted, and we are not the only opinions on this issue. Something we think might be really helpful might be something that other students don't want, and that's a conversation that we think is really important to maintain and to have.
Great, thank you so much. And Alana, thank you for pointing that out about the events. Father Fitzgerald sent out an email in response to not only your demands but kind of just the general upset on campus, I guess, at the initial email. Could you share your thoughts on this most recent email that was addressed to the USF community?
The first thing I'll say is, I'm glad that the email was sent, and I'm glad that, they've listed the resources available so that students know what their current options are. I will say the email that was sent to the community as a whole doesn't fully address the needs that we as a community feel we have. I talked a little bit about the sort of apology in this issue that we always seem to have every single time the university gets asked to do something. So they don't seem to hold themselves accountable. And of course, we know that this is for PR reasons. Accepting accountability as staff means that they have to accept that it's a university issue instead of a student issue, which is a lot harder to approach. But I think that, some of these issues that we've had with them, and especially in their communication, have been about the sort of way that these demands are not being treated with the utmost importance, right? It's not just about changing things a little bit. It's about really going back to the drawing board and saying, students are not feeling that these spaces are doing enough for them. So why is that? And how can we change that? I appreciate that the current spaces are available, but I think that it can be really disheartening to a lot of people to see, we know you're angry, but you actually have all of these options. When students are saying these options are not doing enough, that's what we're telling you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think for us to go out with demands, and not even just our demands, but as we were saying, so many other people with different needs to be met on campus, for this email to just kind of say, that happened, here's what's already there, thanks, goodbye. It's of course nicer than that and has more padding, but that's how I read it. I think we deserve more, and I know more takes time, And I mean, as we can see from what we're trying to do, but either way, in the end, there needs to be more. Whether it's now, whether it's when we leave and graduate, there needs to be more.
Yeah, and building off of what Gabby had kind of said already, this is why I believe it is so important for us to approach this from an abolitionist perspective. Because as a survivor, reading this email, I see that once again, this institution has failed us. It's failed me. So we had the chant during the protest, we keep each other safe. That's not just a chant, right? Like, that's something that we're taking with us and that we are implementing in all of the groups and all of the organizing that we're doing moving forward. Because ultimately, at least me personally, I don't feel like I can rely on the university to keep me safe because it hasn't in the past. It's not currently doing that. I rely on my community. And I think that's kind of one of the guiding principles we have as an organizing team.
I also think it's really important to note that with the school addressing Title IX policies on a state and federal level, that's not to say we don't want that to happen. We surely do, and lots of universities across the countries are pushing for this move to get some Title IX policies reversed to what they were and even be better. But first and foremost, we need USF to address our own Title IX policies that we've had and that we're upholding. And whatever they are on the state or federal level, the school and the university has all the power to create Title IX policies that are even more inclusive and more supportive, and that's the choice that we want them to make first and foremost.
Precisely. And I think that's what frustrated me about having read the email, is that kind of misunderstanding of one of our demands. I think it's easy to push for advocation of more comprehensive Title IX policies. It's a lot harder to address the very deeply rooted culture of sexual assault that you have on your campus.
Another thing I think I'll note about the email is that when you read the detailed account, as I advise everyone to do, it's great to know where the university is approaching these issues from. And I do think they put a lot of information into that report. But I think the university is putting a lot of work on these new student-built groups, even on Title IX, which is beyond underfunded and understaffed at this university. One of their newest member didn't have an office for the majority of
first month.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work they're putting on this organization that's very new, and those students are great and those teams are great and we're glad to have them. But to say like, oh, we actually don't need to, look to new spaces. We don't need to fund and create new spaces because we have this space. But, one space that's underfunded can't do the work that it really wants to do. It's the sort of deep emotional harm that I think it causes students to know that their small team is responsible for everyone. When really what we're trying to do is advocate for the creation of a bunch of other spaces so that students have, the option, like Mateo and Alana are creating, for safety and for healing, and they have the option for advocacy, and they know that it's not just a small group of students who are trying to maintain their own education that are responsible for the safety of our entire community.
Survivor experiences are nuanced, right? Survivor stories are nuanced. So it is important for us to focus on various methods of addressing those, right? We can't just give this enormous task to a single office, right?
We are not enough. CAPS is not enough. REPS is not enough. Title IX is not enough. And that's the whole point, is that we need the university to understand that one or two support services is not enough for this epidemic that's affecting so many people on their campus. And that's why we're asking for more funding for all of these various groups, and not specifically to ours, but to Title IX, to REPS. We're asking for more funding to be gone into student survivor networks.
Yeah, I think it hits when you read the Sports Illustrated article and you see student after student say, I had to leave the university. I couldn't afford to keep paying into a school that wasn't going to protect my safety. And then you look at it and you say, well, if they had these options in place, if the school funding, not just towards initiatives for healing, but, knowing how to protect student survivors. A lot of survivors have to attend classes in small majors with the assailant that was in their group, and we saw that in the article and also in people that spoke at our event. And I'm not saying that it's the university's job to make the major have 4 of the same class, but that there need to be more comprehensive funded steps that we can discuss with the university and administration on a student level, one-on-one, like we requested in our first demand, in order to move forward and keep having this discussion. Say, like, what are new ways we can look to protect students? What are these other options? Can we provide students with alternative class structures that are not taking away from their school experience, right? How can we put the workload on the assailant rather than the survivor to make sure that this issue is dealt with?
Exactly. There need to be guidelines and protocols in place that are larger than, hi, this is your RA. You can go to CAPS. Thanks. It needs to be more than that. It needs to be more structured, and it needs to provide people with the understanding of their options.
Yeah, I guess sort of building off that, and maybe this was touched on a bit, but what do you all feel are the next steps that need to be taken to ensure that the demands and this progress are actually followed through on?
I think most importantly is anybody who's in the capacity to take action and wants to get involved with us, come find us, come reach out to us. I think the next steps are kind of dispersing and delegating the issues we want solved into smaller groups. When you put all of these responsibilities on a very small group of students, they never get done. So we're looking for more people to reach out to us, and we want to delegate a little bit responsibilities. Like we said, we have the town hall, which is more about policy initiatives and a little bit more demonstrative, that we want, to hear everybody's opinions about what type of changes they want on campus and what their ideas are. And then we have that separate support group, which it's going to be, we're hoping, a bi-weekly group where people can drop in as they need it, because sadly, there will always be people who will need that space, and they can share their stories in a safe environment. And we actually are waiting as well for It's On to be kind of finalized through the university in order to be able to reserve spaces for these various events. So that's another major thing we're waiting for, and that's honestly possibly the largest thing slowing us down at the moment.
Yeah, it's about longevity, right? Like we talk about sowing seeds. We really do want underclassmen to get more involved with the organizing and the creation of these spaces, because unfortunately, if we as students don't continue to apply that pressure, and if we don't continue to do this work, then it's just not going to get done, right? Like that's just the nature of the university.
Yeah, I think I agree with that next step of getting more people involved, right? A lot of people come up to us and say, oh, we wish you did more stuff more frequently. We wish this continued the whole week. And I really would love to do that as well. But the reality is, most of us as organizers are students, employees, and interns. Mm-hmm. We do all of those simultaneously with our work with It's On. So having the time and capacity to maintain this movement is really important to us. But it's hard to do when it's only a smaller team. So, if anyone wants to hold an event, please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to offer support in whatever way possible. Another next step we're engaging with right now is responding to the university. We got 2 emails this week, one from Title IX and one from Father Fitzgerald, both privately to us as organizers. And we will be publishing our responses once we make them, but we're currently drafting how to do that. As soon as we have the response that we want to make, we will put out both the email we received and the response, just so that we can have transparency with all of the students, but also so that we can confirm that we're talking to the university before publishing those responses, and respecting that we receive that email. The university deserves to know what we're going to say, of course, if they've sent that to us. We do want to make sure that, we aren't spiting any communication and harming good that we could do for survivors. But at the same time, that involves making sure that we are being held accountable to the community. So I think another next step that the community can engage with is, telling us what they want. If there's things that we've done that you didn't appreciate, parts of the event that made you uncomfortable, or something that you want to change about the structure, let us know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's about, a community initiative, and knowing that it's not just a scheduled event you can show up to, but it's something that if you feel that week needs it, if you're feeling particularly strong about it, and you know that there's something that would be helpful, an event that you want to hold, reach out and connect, because we love to support new things.
And what is the best way that students can get involved with It's On USFCA? What is your preferred method of communication or outreach?
We have an email, which, do you know the email?
It's on usfca@gmail.
Yes, yeah. But the easiest way to get in contact with us as a whole is through the It's On Instagram, which is its_on_USFCA.
Yeah, we're also all tagged in several of the posts.
Yeah.
If you want to like reach out to us personally,
Yes.
there's no problem with that at all either.
I guess just to wrap up, is there anything else that you all would like to share about the recent responses from the administration or about your work as organizers in general?
Gabby touched on this a little already, but we have received responses from the university both privately and publicly, and we have not yet had the chance to go over them as a group and draft our responses. So in the effort of transparency, once that is done, obviously we'll be sharing it with our community. But yeah, we're still working on that.
And we kind of touched on this earlier as well, but this movement and these demonstrations are not about centering us or our opinions, and it's not about centering either the administration and making them look bad or good. It's about tangible change. And so, like, personally for me, whatever the administration says, I will not be paying attention to until there's tangible action, because the only thing I care about in my involvement in this movement is creating tangible change that's better spaces for survivors.
Yeah, I think the Alana statement wraps it up basically that, it's great to receive communication, to know where they are, but until steps are put into motion and not just meetings, but actual on-campus changes that survivors can feel and be affected by, that will be when we know that the work is happening in a way that's beneficial and that we approve of.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you all so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We really appreciate you taking the time to look at what we're doing and kind of give us a platform to speak to the campus community, because we know a good amount of you have seen, the flyers or maybe the Instagram or even the sticks, but we want you to hear why we're here, and it's not about us. It's about creating change for you.
Right.
Yeah, and I think more than that, it's, most of us are seniors, and we're going to be leaving this year. So it's about sort of putting the things we've learned as organizers over the years, especially for myself and the involvement that I feel like myself and others in mutual aid like Mateo have had. But, we've learned a lot of things along the way. And it's really important as abolitionists and organizers to be able to give that back to underclassmen and, give them the skills and trade abilities that we've learned, so they can continue this in the future and know that even as alumni, we'll be supporters of them.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that I have anything else to say. Like you both basically said it all. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. That was great.
Yeah, thank you, Giuliana, again.
It's On Us is now officially a student organization at USF. To get involved and stay up to date with their work, be sure to follow their account on Instagram at itsonus_USFCA. Thanks for listening.